Well, good evening. Good evening, MPO Transportation Policy Committee members. Call the meeting to order. And you'll note on the agenda, it calls for two items to be under consent. And I'm going to ask for your permission to go ahead. Actually, number one should be a public hearing. So I'm just going to go ahead and move that out of consent and have it carried as a separate item. We'll go to item number 2, and then we'll go back to item number 1, and I'll declare a public hearing. It'll be open here in a minute. So, John, do you want to comment on anything regarding the 2024 Transportation Planning Work Program, or Kyle?
The draft work program was included with the committee action form. So if any of the members have any questions, we'd be happy to go over them. Or if anybody would like a brief presentation of what's in the work plan, we'd be glad to do that as well.
Any questions? I just had one, and that is when can, I know that there's been several questions regarding the 190th traffic study. I saw in the report that it's pretty much getting close to be done. When would you expect that that'd be presented to this group or submitted to us for review? And
the current plan is for that study to be brought to the policy in the May meeting. So
maybe,
yeah, May 22nd, 3rd, whatever that Tuesday is there. So yeah,
is that a rather lengthy report?
It should be pretty comprehensive. It'll be a full presentation. We'll have the consultant come in and give a full presentation. Yep.
Well, I think that the committee probably would appreciate having that, well in advance, maybe a week in advance versus a couple of days. If you could try and get that out so we could, look at it ahead of time, I think that'd be appreciated. So.
Yep.
All right. Hearing no questions, I'd entertain a motion approving the draft fiscal year 2024 Transportation Planning Work Plan Program and setting May 23rd, 2023 as date of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Moved by Merkin and seconded by Pop. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carried. Okay, we'll go ahead and we're now going to open a public hearing on the amendment to the federal fiscal year 2023 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address the Transportation Policy Committee on this particular item? Seeing none, declare a public hearing to be closed. And any questions for staff on this particular item? Any comments, John or Kyle?
Nope.
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the amendment.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carried. All right. Anything else that you need from us tonight?
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Jacob, any questions or comments under policy committee comments?
No questions, but just quick comment. This will likely be my last meeting on AMPO as my term on the SciRide board will expire at least before our next scheduled meeting. But just wanted to say a quick thanks to city staff and council for bearing with my questions over the years.
Well, we appreciate all of the service you've given on the transit board and as president of student government and on the Ames Parks and Recreation Committee. And were you a student or were you actually working here full time?
I'm not really sure.
All right. Anyway, congratulations. Thank you. And job well done. Rowan, anything for you?
Nothing for me.
John?
Not tonight.
Nothing. No.
No comments.
No. Thanks for your work, Jacob.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
So how is the foot? Ankle.
Quick meeting, yeah. 5 minutes.
Weekend, didn't it? Oh, no, we haven't. I get it x-rayed again Thursday.
Who's helping you with it?
I said Larson. Here.
You know him very well?
I'll get back.
Yeah, I'm a huge Chuck Larson fan.
Sure. Really? He tells us like, I'm surprised. I hear so many people.
Oh, I am a huge.
Get a gold tip.
Years ago.
No, I
Fancy.
like Chuck very much.
He's hurt me a lot.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Huh?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Yes, his aroma and his way of dealing with that, putting a needle in the top of my foot to put stuff in and numb it. I think it might have worked. It doesn't bother me as much as it used to. Oh, God. That sounds nasty.
So Chuck is a runner, and I think that has given him a perspective of what he does. And he's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Several times.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Okay.
It's cool. There was some weeds in there, and then I went to Emmitsburg for St.
Everywhere I go, I see them.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, good evening. I call the regular meeting of the Ames City Council for March 28th to order. Evening, council members. And we were going to move right into consent, and there's two items of note. One is the under item number 5, the applicant has requested to have that approval pulled, so that will not be on the agenda tonight. And under item number 9, item B, instead of 2:30 to 7:30 p.m., it should read 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then on item C, instead of 3:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., it should be 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. regarding the Spring Carnival on April 21st, 2023. Does council wish to pull any other items from the consent? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve less item number 5 and the changes referred to in item 9B and 9C.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to public forum. This is time we set aside for items of city business, and they're not listed on the agenda. I asked people if they would limit their time to 3 minutes or less. I have a card from Richard. So, Richard, you may proceed.
I hope I'll be under 3 minutes for this. At the library's author fair on Saturday, I went to it and I was talking with one of the authors of one of the books, and this one lady with her daughter, her daughter was maybe 1 or 2 years old. She's carrying her, and it's like she invited herself into the conversation, and the author just started to talk with her, and it's like I kind of felt a little bit left out, which was no big deal. But at one point, the mother of that daughter was basically saying something to the effect that it's like she didn't know how to financially take care of her kid. And it's like I pulled out one of my dollar bills and tried to give it to her, and it says on all of my money that I get, doesn't matter where I put, please let us be naked, like my t-shirt. And she took offense to the fact that I was somewhat of a nudist. And she spoke really loudly, and there wasn't any screaming or anything like that or anything. But it's like she called after the brief conversation I had with her, and as I was leaving, I was giving a no trespassing order for the library, and the reasoning being that it's like I was trying to give away my money to say, give this to your kid's college fund. And it's like the notice that I got from the library it says, please call the library director, son. And it's like, use the phone. I don't have a phone. And it's like, I sort of want to go to the library, but it's like, I mean, some people were sort of saying, it wasn't like the official thing when I got my no trespassing or getting the door at City Hall. That had my name on it. This doesn't have anybody's name on it. It's like a generic sort of thing that looks like they give to anybody that violates the library's conduct or the library policy. And if this thing is that conduct, I'm at a loss as to understand. I mean, Carly gave this to me yesterday morning, and it's like I'm at a loss to understand which one of the conducts I was violating. And I sort of want to go. I mean, it's a lot harder for me to be away from the library for a week than it is being at City Hall for a year, getting the door for people. It's like I don't know. It's like I found sort of what some of my life's calling has been at the library, not the Ames Public Library, but Iowa State Library and Santa Fe Public Library. And I don't know. It doesn't seem right that I am giving away my money to some kid. And she takes offense with the fact that I'm somewhat of a nudist.
Anyone else want to address council under public forum this evening? Okay, we'll close public forum and we'll move on to item number 32, city council values, goals, and tasks for 2022-2023. Brian.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item, I think we could divide really into two different sections. So first, the council met in a retreat in January to review the goals, objectives, and tasks the values, goals, and tasks that have been adopted a year ago, and to decide whether to make modifications to that list. The council proposed 4 additional tasks, which are included in the attachment in your packet. That's the first item, is whether you agree with how staff has captured those tasks, or whether you believe there's some nuance there that needs to be adjusted. The second component of this item is whether the council has interest in reviewing the conservation subdivision ordinance. This was an item that was discussed at the workshop. It wasn't captured in the minutes, and there wasn't a motion made, but the mayor raised the question subsequently about whether that item should be included in the council's tasks for staff moving forward. So if the council has interest in that, it'd be appropriate to make a motion to incorporate that into the list of tasks. Otherwise, we're simply seeking approval from the council that we've captured your marching orders for city staff for the next 10 months.
Thanks, Brian. Questions, comments? Let's take it up 2 different items. First of all, as Brian indicated, there's 4 tasks that were added. Does everyone agree with the way that they were? Does that capture what council gave direction to staff in terms of adding things to the list of things to do?
Yeah, so the question of the conservation
At least
overlay
yeah,
aside,
yeah.
I would move that we accept
Okay.
those changes.
Is there a second? All right. Any further discussion? All right. Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. I think that back to this concept, I think that Brian did a good job of capturing it in the memo to the council, and that is it was to explore potential alternative methods to accomplish the goals that underlie the ordinance. It's not to do away with that, but we're getting feedback from developers that at times the conservation subdivision requirements do not provide the density needed to allow housing divisions at Ada Hayden Lake watershed. And so primarily would be is to explore other ways to accomplish exactly the same goals and objectives to protect the watershed. And we want to stress, we're not trying to diminish the protection. It's just more or less other different ways to accomplish that same task that would help accomplish multiple goals. One is the housing that we need in our community, but also protecting the watershed.
On this one, I guess I would feel a little more comfortable if the request came through the normal channel for requests. So just so that we would have a record of, maybe which developers are having which specific issues with the overlay. Like, are there elements of it that they want to tell us are more burdensome? Because otherwise it's a little vague. And if that could come to us as a request,
Okay.
and then we could consider whether we bring it through with, I think that's what I would prefer.
It might also be the case that it's a little bit early to be looking at this, given that we don't know what's happening at the state legislature. And some of their bills, or at least one of them, could impact this. So I'd be
That's a good
hesitant
point.
to invest time in this at this point.
All right. Well, if there's going to be no motion to consider that, and Bronwyn's trust your opinion, and I certainly can pass that on to the developers, then we'll go ahead and move on.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we want to talk about on this item? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. All right, moving on to item number 33, staff report on the Fitch Family Indoor Aquatic Center. Keith.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thanks, Susan. So tonight, going to go through the Fitch Family Indoor Aquatic Center. You received the staff report, had a lot of information, to it. So just going to kind of highlight some of those areas, and then there is some direction that we're looking for from City Council. So there are really kind of three areas that we're looking for. One, building design, the layout. If there are any comments from City Council, we'd like to get that feedback tonight. As far as the budget, I'll go through that and give you a little bit more information. Not really looking to change the budget at this time, and I'll give more information about that. But just want to see if Council is in alignment with what we suggest. And then project priorities, we get to the value engineering, our whole list of things. We're really not looking again for council to decide which of those options we should do or not do. We're really looking for direction in regards to those priorities. The quality of materials could be broken down into longevity and aesthetics, energy efficiency, sustainability, and then based on the direction that council gives us, then what we can do is we can work with the consultants and make some decisions to get the budget back in line with what we originally had. So just some informational updates. We talked about this at the CIP or maybe the budget hearing, but the city did purchase the property from Iowa DOT on January 5th. They do issue a land patent. We do have that in our possession, and everything's done with that purchase. So the property is officially ours. We did contract with CGA to do a topographic and boundary survey. Should be getting that information this week, and then that will provide some additional information to our consultants as they move forward into design development and really start taking a look at footings and all the other things that need to go with the construction of the building. Geothermal wells. So the DNR did give us a definitive answer that vertical wells they will not allow vertical wells. So the only option left is horizontal wells. Now those generally run for about 300 feet, and they are in a series of I would call them layers. Each horizontal line, there would be one at 15 feet, one at 30 feet, and one at 45 feet. So we're having conversation with the DNR and with KCL, which is the mechanical subconsultant for RDG. And we're working to get those two groups together to have some conversation and see if it's going to be possible to do that on that site. To get 300 feet, we would have to do something in that northeast quadrant. And that's a concern, although KCL did mention that even if they were shorter lines, there would still be a benefit to doing geothermal wells, and would help with the energy efficiency and hopefully would reduce some of our operational costs as well. Stormwater management, that is something that we're looking at, a combination of on-site and off-site stormwater management. We do it all on-site. We will most likely need to do something under some of the parking in that northwest corner. And then that also may impact, the geothermal wells if we can do stormwater management stacked on top of some of those geothermal wells. So we're working through that. We're looking at options. We've had 2 meetings thus far between RDG's stormwater individual and then city staff, Tracy Peterson, Liz, and Cesar. We've all been having this conversation. We have another meeting coming up in a couple of weeks. And then with the environmental services, we're finalizing contract with Impact 7G. And part of that contract, they'll be providing guidance, to us throughout the process in regards to materials that we need to use. And they also will be putting together a management plan for us for construction. So if contaminated soils, materials are encountered, we'll have a plan to deal with them right away. Part of their contract is doing monitoring wells also. And then there are, with the geothermal, DNR has asked us to do 9 additional groundwater samples in specific locations. So that is something that Impact 7G would do as well. So those are things that on top of the design, these are other things that are going on at the same time. So right now, we're finishing up the schematic design phase. So if you hear me, say SD, that's referring to the schematic design. This is the first phase, and you can see the different components, of it. We've been working through, these areas, these topics, going back and forth. A lot of here's a floor plan, here change this, do this, make this bigger, make that smaller, move this over here. So a lot of different things with it. Should mention at the beginning, just with the scope and the parameters, city manager Steve, assistant city manager Shildroth, and I did meet with RDG and Story Construction early on, just to talk about the scope, which is kind of what's the building purpose, the components, what the budget is, and so on. And then we did talk parameters, and those entail the energy efficiency, longevity of the building, equipment, operations, and so on. So those are some things that we've been doing. They did put together an SD booklet, and what that entailed was the floor plans. It also had the program spaces, and when I say program, if there's an office, that would be a program. The pools, those would be programs, all storage. So everything that we needed in the building, that was kind of part of these program spaces. So that was included in there. And then a narrative, at this point, a narrative regarding all the different components. So building components, precast, concrete insulated panels, LED lighting, what HVAC might look like, security system, sprinkler, all of that information was included in this booklet that was then given to Stecker Harmson, who was hired by RDG to do a cost estimate. And then as part of their contract, and then also Story Construction, part of their contract was to do a cost estimate as well. So they both did cost estimates based on all the information in that booklet. There's a lot of assumptions that were made. Generally during this SD phase, they are a bit conservative, with their cost estimating, because they're not quite sure. Is it 100,000? Is it 70,000 square feet? So they're making some assumptions on some of those things. Those will all get refined during this next phase, which is design development. A lot of everything will get more fleshed out, and we'll get more accurate numbers. And both Stecker Harmson and Story Construction, they both have indicated that their feeling is that the design development cost estimate will be lower because they'll have more accurate information to work with. I will also say with their cost estimates, Story Construction, they keep track of their costs for projects within the last couple of years. So when they're looking at gypsum board or painting or steel or whatever, they're looking at their average costs that they've had over the last couple of years, and that's what they're using for, a unit cost when they put this together. One other thing that they mentioned is that the annual increase in costs has been about 4 to 5% is what they've been seeing. Seeing as we're looking to put bid documents out or construction documents out for bid in November, what they did is they used today's prices, and then they just used a 3% escalator. So that's already factored into their cost estimates. So the building floor plan, again, we did two different, we have the base bid, and then we have the add alternate. And what you see up on the screen right now is the base bid. I'll show you the add alternate in a little bit, and that is the walking track, multi-purpose space, a couple of restrooms. So with the base bid, you see the three pool basins, the wellness pool or the therapy pool, the recreational pool, and then the lap pool. And then we have, the other areas. So storage, there is some storage off of the classroom party room. In the classroom party room, there is a divider in there, so that can actually be broken down into two smaller rooms. So we could use it if we have say a training, could be a large room. If we have two birthday parties, we could make it, two smaller rooms. We do have, the check-in control, an admin suite, which would, if I wanted to go over there and work, there'd be a workstation. I could do that. Recreation superintendent, if they needed to have a small meeting, that could be held in there. Also be some storage, copier, things of that sort. We do have a aquatic director's office and a lifeguard office. Those would have glass, be able to look into the pool to see what the pool area, see what's going on. We do have a men's and a women's locker room, which the shower stalls in there would be individual. We're not doing the gang showers that a lot of us might be used to when we were growing up. And then in the middle of those, we have 8 universal change rooms is what we're calling them, family change rooms. A couple of them are a little larger, and we are looking to have adjustable adult size changing tables in those 2 rooms. So they are, you can lower them, you can raise them. They aren't fixed at a specific height. And that's some of the feedback that we actually got from from people during the ADA audit when we held, public engagement meetings. That was something that they indicated to us. And then we have, the support areas. We'll say that one thing initially, there was a lot more aquatic storage area. And when we really started looking at what we're going to store there, we actually reduced, the amount of storage that we had. Some of those spaces may continue to be refined during the design development phase. We get the actual equipment, the size of the equipment. So let's say pool mechanical equipment area, that may be shrink, a little bit. One thing that you'll notice if your memory is good from our conceptual design from a year or so ago, we did actually have a smaller slide in here as well, and we did take that out. As we were going through things and looking at the size of things, we left the big slide, we took the little slide out. So if you look at this is again the base bid plus the alternate, and we'll say looking at the base bid, you look at that wall, on the right. So north is up. So on the east side, that wall is kind of in the same area. But if we are able to do the add alternate, there would be doors that go into the multi-purpose space, the walking track. There's an added 2 universal restrooms up at the top. So that's designed so that could be added obviously now, or it could be added in the future if that was the case. So as far as all of this on the site, a couple of aerials that shows the building. We did look to site it. We did look at different options, maybe on the south, maybe a little bit further to the east, maybe put it on the west side. But this is where we landed for a number of reasons. I'm not going to go into all those, but you can see that green space on the east side of the building, and that is where the add alternate space would go into that area. As far as a few looks, this is looking at the building to the north, so across Lincoln Way, little different than what was conceptually done a year or so ago. So really tried to look at, this is going to be kind of the gateway. It's the back of the building, but it's really what majority of people are going to see. So that darker gray where the Fitch Family Indoor Aquatic Center is shown, that would be steel. Into the lower left, into the lower right, underneath that darker gray, that's glass. Is what that is. So you would be able to see into the building. And this picture here is shown with just the base bid. And I'll show you another one. So as we go through these pictures, just so you know, on the right side of the building, that light tan color, that is actually a stone veneer on the precast panels. If you see a dark color, it's brick veneer. So I kind of go back and forth and show different things. That hasn't been decided yet, but just so you know. And then you can see that's the picture with the add alternate to it. Then if we're looking from kind of towards the southwest of the building, again, this shows the brick veneer to it. That's the base bid, and then that's with the add alternate. Look at it from the southwest corner looking northeast. Again, you can see some. And then I will point out too that just beyond the slide, you see the dark gray, and then it goes to more of a lighter gray. That is actually just unfinished precast panels. So there are some different options that we can do, that we could stain the precast panels rather than putting a veneer on them as well. And then that just shows it with the add alternate. And then the last view is looking from, it's the corner of Lincoln Way and Elm, looking to the northwest, and that's the base bid. And then with the add alternate, you can see a little bit more glass, on that one. We really tried to minimize the glass on all sides, and again, give some different options. So those are just the different views. We get to the budget. So the cost estimates, there's really a column, the first column and the second column. The first column is what we set, or council set, as a projected budget. That's what was in the CIP information that's been adopted. So you can see a number of different things. Now, most of the items are like land. That's the actual cost, 2.9 million. The design and the construction manager, those are the contract costs that are listed there. The relocate the electric lines, the remediation, the soil survey, the FF&E, those are all set by staff. And we have kept those, throughout. So you can see the construction, we had set 20,500,000, for construction costs. The cost estimate right now, and that's the reconciled cost between the two estimates that were done, is 23,658,000. So you can see we're about, from a construction standpoint, about $3.2 million over. And that 3.2 million does not include the 2.4 million for the add alternate. So if you add the add alternate in there, we're about 5.6 million over what our construction budget is. So this kind of gives you just some of the numbers right now with it. And again, other than the construction, we left the other numbers the same for right now.
Do we have any idea, Keith, when we're going to know about the remediation mitigation costs?
We should start getting a better feel for some of that as we get into this design development. Because then we'll have Impact 7G on board. They'll start be telling us as what piping we need. Do we need the vapor barriers? All of that stuff will be start coming out. We'll start getting numbers during this next phase. Okay. Now, from a funding standpoint, we show again the projected budget, and you can see there, again, these are numbers that was included in the CIP, the current CIP. So you can see geo bonds of 19,334,000. That's what we have indicated was going to be bonded for. And council has authorized themselves to issue up to 21.2 million. So there potentially could be, 1.8, almost $1.9 million. There's a little bit more in the donations. And then the ARPA funding wasn't in our original budget, but we did put that as potential funding. That's another 868,000. So there potentially is, another 2,700,000 potentially out there. Now, what staff is recommending at this time, we don't think it's prudent to say, hey, let's use this potential extra funding and keep a lot of what we have. We think what we need to do is continue to work with the consultants, look at the design. What can we do to get that number back down to 20.5 million? And we'll talk about those VE options as well. Another one of the components, and you see that the asterisk underneath, the Community Attraction and Tourism Grant, the CAT grant. And by the way, we're doing a presentation to that committee on Thursday morning down in Des Moines, and I think there are 11 communities doing presentations. So that's not a guarantee that 500,000 is included in this, but it's not a guarantee. So thing at this point, and we'll have more conversation later, but we really think We need to continue working with the consultants and get that estimated budget down to the 20.5 and see what happens. Because again, things could change, and we can always add things in as alternates if we wanted to when we do the construction documents and put things out to bid. So we mentioned about value engineering in the staff report. There was a list of different options. We didn't put the cost savings in there because at this time we're really not looking for council to say, hey, we should do this or we should do that. What we really want council to do is give us some direction on the priorities. Again, what's the highest priority for council? Is it sustainability? Is it longevity? Is it impact on operations? So once you give us that direction, then staff will work with the consultants to get those numbers down. So again, those items, some items, if we take them out now, we could always look at them as alternates in the future if needed. So next steps, make decisions on options based on council priorities. Again, that's staff will work with the consultants on that. We'll finalize the contract with Impact 7G, get them going, perform the 9 additional groundwater tests, have the geothermal conversations, determine the stormwater management, and then we'll update council for sure at the end of design development. And if there's anything prior to that we need council approval or direction on, will come at that time. So this is taking 3+ months of conversations and meetings and so on, and giving you a very short summary. But now what we'd like to do is get council direction, and obviously I'd entertain any questions if there are any as well.
Let's start with any questions that Keith. Can you, I just had one question on the geothermal. What was the reason that the DNR did not support the vertical wells?
So with the vertical wells, those are generally 300 feet or so drilled down vertically. The aquifer that sits in that area is about 90 to 120 feet. So their concern was with the makeup of some of the soils, the sand and everything, that if there is movement of any contamination, it gets to those vertical shafts, and that contamination could drop down into the aquifer. And that was their biggest concern. The horizontal, like I mentioned earlier, would be 15, 30, and 45 feet. So it'd still be about 45 feet above the aquifer, and there'd be nothing down. So that's why they're still looking at that as a potential option. But it was really that potential for contamination going down those vertical shafts.
And they were okay with horizontal wells?
As of right now, depending on those 9 additional groundwater borings, those borings that we have to do to do the groundwater samples, based on how those come back, then that will help form their decision as to whether they would approve or issue a permit for the horizontal. So it's not a given yet, but
right.
But that's where we're at.
And how much of an energy efficiency benefit is there to the geothermal according to KCL?
Yeah, I don't have that exact number, percentage, or anything, with it. I know they went through a number of options with us. One of the things that they talked about is a chiller. Having a chiller as part of the HVAC system. And what the chiller does is it takes, the heat from the system, And if you couple it with the geothermal, it really does a good job of getting rid of the heat, and then with the cooling and so on. So if we can't do geothermal, they're not sure that the chiller will be a good way to go. We may have to go just with traditional HVAC. But those are things, that's why we'll have the conversation between KCL and DNR, and then we'll be able to get more information on that energy efficiency. They felt pretty confident that it was a good way to go, and we would see energy efficiency, and we would see some operational savings as well because of the way the system would be designed.
And the other question you mentioned about Impact 7G, you mentioned that they were going to be doing, the borings and the like. Are they also being hired to advise in terms of what types of piping should be used because of potential, being in contact with, contaminated soil or groundwater? And also, I think you mentioned it already about should they be lining the outside and ventilating? I mean, all those things part of their, 'cause I think that you
Yes.
said before that they're not, RDG doesn't want to touch that. They want someone that we would hire. Is that part of their scope of work too?
It is. Yep. That's part of, they'll provide, guidance on all those things. And questions come up. They'll give us direction as to what are the options, and then, which way to go. So that is part of their contract.
Okay. So I guess let's take these by, if there's no other questions, it seemed appropriate to go by those three broad categories that Keith has got. One is building design, second project budget, and then project priorities. Any feedback for Keith on the building design, either exterior or the interior layout?
And I forget, are we taking public input on this one tonight?
We sure can.
I was just curious if,
Yeah. Let's go through and get some feedback, and then we can go get response from people.
Sure.
No feedback on the building design?
So we've had lengthy discussions about the value of the walking track. Nevada, if they don't already have a walking track for their residents, they soon will have. And we just had a couple more emails today on this. And I think it's long past time that the city of Ames have a walking track for its residents. We make our residents go up to the mall and walk on the concrete. This may not be an important thing for the council, but I'm telling you, it's an important aspect for this community. And if there's any way we can get the walking track, I think our residents would benefit broadly and greatly.
Yeah, I think one thing I would mention about that, Tim, is, again, if we can get the consultants and we make decisions to keep our construction budget at 20.5 million, based on the extra potential funding, if all of that, comes through, as is, maybe we don't spend as much money on the remediation. There may be enough money, to do the ad alternate, depending on bid day. But that's why I think it's really important when we talk budget is we really try to stay to that 20.5 without sacrificing, council priorities. And if we can do that, then the ad alternate becomes a little bit more realistic. It's not a given, but it may become a little bit more realistic.
The last year has been so hard for council to watch so many bids come in well above the engineering estimate. It's hard for me to be optimistic about that. The council itself has added $3 to $4 million to this project by the decision to locate it on a contaminated soil site instead of O'Neill Park. So we ourselves have added $3 to $4 million. I didn't know until this meeting that we're we run the risk of endangering even our aquifers. If the risk to our children was not enough, this is the first time the specter of infecting the aquifer has been raised. So that's another level of concern of why in the world would anyone build a pool for children in our residence on a contaminated soil site. But on the building design, that's what I want to focus on. I would like to, if at all possible, achieve that walking track for our residents.
Keith,
Go ahead.
sorry, one of the budget value engineering options is lowering the walls and the roof of the building. Is there, in the building design, any room for reducing the footprint of the building by a little bit here and a little bit there, as the suggestion is with the walls?
Yes. Yep. And that was one of the things right now. One of the suggestions was to reduce the decking, the pool deck, by about 800 square feet. So that is something that we're going to be taking a look at. We have already had conversation with our consultants about continuing to look at all of the spaces. And it may not seem like a lot if we get 50 feet here, 50 square feet here, maybe 100 square feet there. But when you add that all up, as long as we still have a functional building that meets the needs of the community, we will do that. And again, we can do that throughout the design development as well. So we'll keep pushing the consultants on that. And we have already made some decisions with sand filters versus regenerative media filters. Regenerative media filters, they take up less space, so the mechanical room can be smaller. They're also, from an operational standpoint, they're cheaper. From a sustainability standpoint, they're better. So just for example, if a sand filter, when we backwash, uses 100 gallons, the regenerative media filter uses 7. So it's really quite a savings. They're all automated. So those are things some decisions that we've already made to try to reduce that footprint, and we'll continue to do that. It's interesting. We at times, we challenge our consultants. We'll say, well, have you ever done this? And they'll say, no, but maybe we can take a look at that. So those are things that staff continually try to challenge them to do it, and we'll continually, do that. But the pool decking was one area that was looked at for potentially reducing some square footage.
So one point on that, you're going to want to still have sufficient spacing between the recreational pool and the lap pool. And kids are going to be playing. They're going to be balls and things flying out of the pool, and the people who are lap swimming, that's going to be very disturbing to have all of a sudden beach balls and things flying across. So having some level of separation between those basins, I think, is going to be important.
Yeah, and we have had that conversation. And one of the options, that's on that list is, I'll just use this as an example, is combining the lap pool with the zero depth pool. And we could save on equipment, we could save on some floor space and so on. But one of the things that it does then is it increases our operational costs, because with the lap pool and the zero depth pool separated, what we can do is, if we just have lap swimming, we only have to guard the lap pool. If we have tot time and that's the only thing, we only have to guard the zero depth pool. But if it's all one huge basin, if we only have lap swimming, we have to guard the whole pool, all the water, which could double our staff costs and so on. So those are things that we're looking at, some of these options as well. And again, we want that feedback from council.
I would be in favor of taking number 13 off the list. That's the combining of the zero depth and the lap pool. That just seems like a really bad idea for a number of reasons.
Any other comments on the building design, either exterior or interior, before we get to our project priorities and project budget.
Back to the pool a little bit. How long is the pool?
The lap pool is 25 yards.
Okay. And this is a small detail. Will there be clocks at both ends of the pool for the lap swimmers?
That's what we've done before with the lap pools. We have not gotten to that detail.
And that's maybe
but
that's more of an equipment question.
Yeah, but I'm sure we'll have that.
Brahma, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to mention the walking track concept too. I think I've definitely heard more support than that than not when talking to people about the pool. A lot of people have mentioned the need for that and wanting one, and I have yet to really run into people who are like who would say, "Oh, save the couple million and don't build one." Most people are in favor of having that, so I would just kind of piggyback on what Tim said. And then the other element is sustainability too. And I know it's tough because of course we can't spend.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep us on track. The building design.
I see. Project.
Is there anything in terms of the floor plan or the
Gotcha.
exterior appearance?
Oh, no.
Or what
I'm
Keith
good on that.
described, and then if everyone's okay with that, then we can go into the budget. Then we'll go to the project priorities, which will take care of the sustainability.
Perfect.
Okay. Any other feedback or comments on what Keith presented for either the floor plan or the exterior?
I have a question.
Yes.
Why isn't the recreation pool next to the party room / classroom?
So we did have conversation about that, and the reason, and I'll go back to that picture. So the reason that we did not do that, if we flip-flopped them, so if you look at where the family change rooms, the universal change rooms are, okay, at times, if you've ever been at a pool or if you ever had little ones, they're getting excited to get into the water. You open that change room door, they're gone. They go out into the pool, and the first thing there is a zero depth entry pool. If we flip-flopped them, if we put that zero depth entry over towards the party room, now when they come in and they just ran forward into the first body of water, which would be the lap pool, it'd be 42 inches deep. And we did it more from a safety standpoint than a convenience next to the party room. So that's why we did it the way we did.
Good question.
That's a really good question. And the other thing too is you could argue if you're in the party room, will kids run out of that and go into the other basement?
Oh, now they're
too?
going to run into the basement.
So that's a really good observation, Tim.
I would also like to add, Iowa State has 2 indoor walking tracks, and they get a lot of use, and they bring a lot of benefit to campus, especially with how hilly campus is. I know it's a lot of extra money, but it brings a lot of benefit to at least the Iowa State community.
Good points. Anything else on the floor plan? How about the outside?
So with the outside, I'm not sure that I am wedded to the idea of having the stone versus the tinted concrete. And so if that's a money-saving option, that would be one that I would be in favor of.
So more go stain route versus a veneer. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. I don't know how others feel about it. It seems to me that it's nice when the stone looks great, but it's also expensive.
Yeah.
And it seems like it could be a good way to save money on something that is not essential to the operations of the facility.
Remind me, and I apologize, I should know this, but with private commercial properties in some areas, we have a requirement for the exterior of the building. Joe, is that
exterior design requirements you're referring to? There, in terms of this particular area?
like, for example, in Campus Town, do they have to have so much surface area?
To receive incentive?
Yeah.
Are you asking, do we have any of those in this particular area?
No, but I'm just trying to think from a design perspective. I mean, I want this building to look nice for the long term, and I worry if we compromise on the exterior short-term gain will be, I mean, this is going to be a very prominent building in our corridor.
They'll make it look nice still. I'm not, you know, I would say, yeah, it's not going to be shabby looking.
Well, I think the main facade that is prominent is the south facade, and that doesn't have any of the stained concrete or stone. That's glass and steel. I guess it's the secondary facade there does have some.
Yes,
so.
yep. Yep, on that east section.
So Keith, are you saying that the entire south wall is glass, and then on top of that, there's also a steel overlay? Is that what you're saying?
No,
Okay.
no. The glass would just be, you know, on those kind of those lower corners with it.
So then,
But that's not glass all behind the steel.
I see. Okay. All right. Any other feedback on the outside right now? This won't be the last time you see it, but I think that they're looking for some direction. All right, project budget. Can you go back to that, Keith?
Yep. And again, right now, with the budget, what we're really, you know, what mentioned is staff is recommending, you know, just
Go to
keeping
go to the next page, maybe.
keeping the budget at, you know, 20.5 million for construction and see how we can get that to it, or get the budget down, or the estimate down to that, and save, you know, this for when we need it, I guess is staff's thought.
So just a point of clarification too, is staff did not determine the $20.5 million. That was RDG's estimate for the project previously, and that's what got put in the contract, correct?
Yes.
I think
That was for the base bid,
staff
yes.
put together these numbers, and the point is that we didn't arbitrarily, I mean, staff didn't arbitrarily say, we're going to figure out 20.5 million and hope that we're correct. That's actually the consultant's budget for the project that was presented previously.
For the base bid, yes.
So just so council's aware, it's not like we're just trying to throw a dart at the wall. There was a lot of intelligence that they put together, and then they've come back with something which is already $3.5 million over what they had given us initially. So I guess maybe you're right. The previous slide's probably better. Keith can show the different elements, but I think your big question is, do we go ahead and commit at this point in time to increasing the amount that we want to put into the project? Is that right?
Well, it's about if we're willing to authorize the full 21.2 versus that 19.3 or so.
Yeah, that's what we had in the staff report, but after more conversation, I think what we're really looking for from council is, at this point, do we just want to stay with the 20.5 million, you know, for the construction budget, say that's what we have, and wait to do anything with additional funding, whether it's a 21.2 or use of ARPA funds or anything, and let's see what we come out of with design development, and then we can maybe make some decisions, because maybe we wind up, we come back and it's something that council's very happy with, the community's very happy with, and we're within that 20.5 million with the mayor just described. And then again, that money could be used for adding the walking track and the multipurpose space. So I think right now it's worded a little different in the staff report, but through conversation, I think really what we're looking at is if you tell us 20.5 construction, let's keep it at that for right now. Let's see what you can do with the consultants, come back at design development, and if we have to make some decisions regarding funding, let's do it at that time and not now. I think that's what our recommendation would be from staff.
Either way, it's going to be challenging. So we're looking at about $5.5 million. We're going to have to either cut costs or identify additional revenue to accomplish both the base bid and the alternate. So we have a challenge before us. But we want to try to work with the design people and not sacrifice too much in the way of our all those elements we talked about: quality, sustainability, all those things. But we may have to prioritize. That's where we may have to give up on some of those areas. I'm not sure we'll be able to accomplish it all.
Just seems pretty early in the process to all of a sudden start raising and saying we're going to pay more money, and all of a sudden then when you find out, oh well, it's even more money,
Right.
then you basically have basically exhausted
Yeah.
your options. And I think we have to accept the fact that we're in a very volatile construction market, and they need to go ahead, and that's what you're hiring them to do, is to help us come up with something that can work. And I think it's council's decision, but I think staff's recommending just staying pat at this point in time.
Either way, we'll come back to you, I think. But we won't make any of these decisions independently. I think we'll have to come back to the council.
Well, I think right now the thought would be, as we move forward, we have to, if we want to stay on a timeline to bid in November, the longer we drag this out in things, that's why we really we could miss that November deadline. And if we're waiting until January or maybe even longer to bid, I think that's not in our favor. So I think to keep things on track, I think we really need council to say, hey, right now yet, staff, take our feedback, work with the consultants, make some of these decisions to get down to a more reasonable number within that 20.5 and see what we can do for design development. Now, design development, if it comes back and it's still at 23 million, even though we made some of these decisions and these changes, then I think at that point, I think we do, bring to council, hey, here are some ideas, here are some thoughts, because I think at that time, the decisions may be tougher than some of the things that we're doing right now. So I guess that's my thought on this, so we can keep things moving. That's why that third, bullet is important to understand. What are your priorities? Because if sustainability was way down here, well, we can make some cuts. But if sustainability is up here, and it makes sense and it saves us money, then that's what we'll take back to the consultant and make decisions based on what you tell us.
I just only because I have some professional experience in this realm. When schematic design is done, the consultant is looking for the city to say, you can proceed on this design, you can proceed on this budget, you can proceed on these elements. So if the budget is raised, they're going to say, okay, you're willing to spend more money, and they're going to go ahead and proceed on that basis. If you say, no, we're standing pat, this is what you were given, you need to basically come back with something. That puts the responsibility on them to come up with and work with staff to come up with some ideas, essentially. And I just think that, we have to, there's a fine balance you're going to have to, to work with. And I'm not being critical of anything. It's just more or less, it's just, we gotta, if you raise the budget, they're going to expect that we're going to pay for that, not go back later on and say, oh, no, we don't want to pay that much money. It's basically, you got to set that standard at this point in time. So, all right, let's go to the last one. You had the priorities, a list of 3 or 4 or 5 items that you. So what are you looking for council to give at this point?
I guess what we're looking for is what are the highest priorities. I know they're all important in things, but what are the highest priorities from council?
If I could just jump in here too, I think you need to comment on impact on operations and minimizing maintenance. Help council understand, because historically all buildings cost more to operate than they do to build over the lifespan of a building. And that
Correct.
includes staff time. It includes, utilities. Obviously, that plays into it, but
Yeah.
comment in terms of what you're talking about in terms of
Sure.
that.
So I'll start with impact on operations, and I'll go back to that example that I used. If we combined, the lap pool and the zero depth pool, okay. Right now, and we're working on an operational budget that we'll bring to council at some point. But based off of the Healthy Life Center, we were somewhere between $350,000 subsidy. Okay? So if we make a decision where we combine those pools and we increase the number of staff, potentially that subsidy goes up. So that's when we're talking impact on operations. We're looking at how is that going to impact the subsidy? Is it going to be more difficult for us to do things, with it? There are some things, right now, as part of the budget that they have from an operations standpoint is, they have $30,000 for a dumpster enclosure, right? One of the things that we're thinking about is, do we spend that 30,000? We have the cost of having that dumpster, emptied once a week or whatever it is, once every 2 weeks, or we don't feel that we're going to really be generating a whole lot of trash, in this building because we're not selling concessions. We will have some parties and so on, but we already have a packer. In the wintertime, we aren't going around and doing rounds, sanitation rounds. So again, we already have the staff, we already have the packer to swing in from one park to the next, to swing into the aquatic center, empty some trash cans, could save us on operations. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking at from an impact on operations. Now there are also, there's the lighting, what type of control you could put in, has, some impact on operations as well. So the minimizing maintenance there, when we make decisions, and I'll use the example when I was out in Colorado, looking at facilities, this became very evident. Now we don't have stairs in this facility, but one of the things that were pointed out a couple of times, and I've seen this, it's one of those things, once you see this stuff, you always are seeing it when you go to different buildings. But with their stairs, what they did is on the risers, on the stairs, a number of facilities had painted risers. All right. You have your treads and then you have your risers, and they painted those risers. They also had painted railings. Okay? Well, what do you think happens to those? You get people walking up the stairs, they're kicking those risers, the paint's chipping, you're getting marks. So to maintain that in a good way, you're probably going to have to paint that every year. The railings, you're going to have to paint those. So it might cost us a little more for, say, stainless steel railings, or what a number of buildings did is they actually put tile on the risers, and you never saw any of that stuff. So what that does, paint increases maintenance. All right. You reduce paint, you minimize maintenance. So those are all the things that we're trying to take a look at as we go through some of this stuff. It might be, well, we can get rid of the acoustic tiles, maybe in the locker room, but now you have an open ceiling, you have rough surfaces, you have a lot of dust, and then it doesn't look very good, and it's very difficult to clean. So that's not the look that we're going to do. So if we do that, again, might be a little bit more of a cost for those panels, but it saves maintenance because we don't have to try to clean or blow off, those ceilings. So those are just a couple of real, I guess, simple examples. But does that help you, Mayor, with those?
I have a question on sustainability. So with some of the projects we do, we see some really terrific benefits from a sustainability perspective. We've got lots of projects we can point to, but sometimes on these kind of projects, we spend a lot of money in investment, but the benefit from an environmental perspective is minimal. Can you help the council think about the sustainability investments in this building?
Yeah. So one is obviously with the heating. So geothermal, the building is being designed structurally to support solar panels, on the roof. So those are a couple of things. But again, we have to take a look at, and that's in this next phase, is they have to tell us what is that payback. If we're spending $2 million on something and the payback is 60 years when the lifespan of the building might be 50, that's not very sustainable. It's got to make sense. So that, lighting, how do we combine a combination of natural light versus lighting? Can we do a lot of uplighting with maybe white ceilings? So you get that impact of the light goes up, comes back down. So some of those things all, we can take a look at how can we reuse, water. Are there some things that, water collecting off the roof? Can we use that for irrigation, for landscape beds? So those I think are just some sustainability items, just off the top of my head. There's a lot more, but those are just a few.
And just so let's just take for sake of discussion, if council said the highest priority is energy efficiency, and they're trying to bring this thing down to a certain level, that may mean they come back and say, well, you can't have certain materials, or we're going to have to do this or this or this. Those choices are going to have to be made. And so this is why I think it's important. That's why you're asking these questions is, what are the priorities? Because they're going to use those to help staff go through a matrix and figure out what it is to bring this thing down, because the budget obviously is
Right.
rarely our projects have unlimited budgets essentially. And this is, one of them. So you have both an initial cost, you have an ongoing maintenance cost, but you also have operations includes both utilities as well as staffing as well too. So
Right.
So is anyone willing to venture in terms of prioritization to give staff some idea what's going to be the highest? What should they focus on first, without going through 1 through 6 or 1 through 7, but just trying to say, if you could group them together into 3 or 4 categories, what's council's priorities?
This is a very difficult exercise because we're asked to do a cost benefit analysis with neither the cost nor the benefits.
Yeah. And again, that's what I think, like I mentioned earlier, is this is, what we're looking for of these, what's most important. Then staff can do that cost benefit analysis. If you say, like we just talked about, if you say sustainability or energy efficiency is a top priority, and we do that cost analysis and it doesn't make sense, then that may be something that we don't do, even though it's a priority. If it doesn't make sense, we shouldn't do it. So I think you get in some cases trust staff, to look at those things, and this will all, you'll see this when we come back at the end of design development, because we'll tell you, hey, here's the decisions that we have made, and this is now where the budget is, and this is what we've done. This is what the design looks like, and
So I'm going to just throw out, get some council feedback. What we're doing is we're building a pool. So I'm looking for maximizing the benefit of a pool. So I'm looking for quality materials, longevity. I want this to be a facility we can be proud of for decades to come. But this operations issue is important as well. We want to make sure we have hours of operation. So as a data point, I spent some time in a comparable facility in Overland Park, Kansas. And if you swim during the day, you're going to be dealing with adults, older adults. Afternoons, evenings, you're going to have a lot of kids. So it is amazing the benefit this pool is going to have. But we want to make sure we have hours of operation that serve our community broadly. We wouldn't want to close it during, 9 to noon. That'd be a train wreck, right? So you're going to want to make sure that you have hours of operation that are very broad. Those would be my two.
Yep.
So I look at the list, and those last 3 bullets to me are all related to staffing. And you can build a great facility, but if you can't staff that facility and maintain that facility, you might as well not have built it. So I see all 3 of those as related to each other. And I would hate to sacrifice those for, let's say, aesthetics. So I don't know how you prioritize among those things, but I just know we have issues with staffing a lot these days. Everybody does. And so the more we can do to minimize maintenance, the simplification for operations and service levels that we can actually serve, I think are the top of my list, which is not to say the other things are not important, but I just can't see how the others function if you don't have a facility that's maintained and staffed.
Anyone have anything else they want to offer as feedback? I think Tim and Gloria did a good job of summarizing some of the things. Anyone I see a lot of head nodding, but go ahead.
I mean, that sustainability element is hard because, of course, we want that. And it's not just about meeting the goals of our climate action plan, though that's also important. But it also, this more sustainable, in my mind anyway, that we make the facility, the less it costs every year to operate. And that's really, I mean, that's where I'd like to see the calculations that, before we say like, yes, commit to this or that, it would be nice to see, what those costs or what those savings payoffs are in the long run. I mean, so yeah, I would say I'm for sustainability for sure, especially as it pertains to lowering the ongoing operational costs of the facility.
Mm-hmm. Rachel, you have anything you want to add?
I would kind of echo Gloria's 3. Also with quality of materials, the longevity piece added in there. I think that really goes with operations, how well we're able to maintain this facility. We want it to be great so that it can be maintained for years and years. So I think that piece is really important.
Amber?
No, I agree with everything that's been said. To Tim's point, this is a really difficult exercise because everything really is interconnected. And without cost information, it makes it hard because our priorities might change based on that. But to the points Gloria made, I think I would definitely agree that, how we operate and the service that we're providing to the community is, for me, the priority because we're building this pool for them. So,
Nita?
I also agree with the comments that have been made. To me, energy efficiency and sustainability also are sort of bundled together and thinking about how you keep the facility open and make sure that it is going to be able to stay open. I agree with quality materials adding longevity. I think there are creative ways to add to the aesthetics without that perhaps being a high priority budget item within this. I think that communities find other ways to do that. So, but yeah, we got to stay open and have enough staff.
Tabitha?
I think that I agree with the staffing thing. That's been a big issue. I would say personally is that we have these buildings and we're putting so much money into all these renovations and there's nobody there to maintain. So if you're putting a lot of money into longevity or the aesthetics of it, if there's nobody there to do that, it's not benefiting anybody because there's nobody there to upkeep that.
Okay. All right, I'll open a public comment. Does anyone want to address council on this topic before we close up for the evening on this item? Hey, Tim. If you would state your name and then you may proceed.
I'm Kendra Myers. I am very excited about this project. I recently learned about it a few weeks ago, and I was looking into it. And the city of Ames is missing out on a lap swimming pool that is indoors, open to the public, since the high school pool is no longer open to the public during a larger span of hours. For master swim, it is only open from 5 to 6, 3 days a week, and only for 1 hour on the weekend, which doesn't work for some people who work full time. One problem I saw with this building design is that it only has 6 lanes. And this summer, when I was talking to some people at the Furman Aquatic Center, they stated that they have to drive all the way down to Des Moines to swim to train for triathlons. And I know there are a lot of other people in this city who feel the same way, that this lap pool needs to have 8 lanes at a minimum, and that 6 will not cut it because those 6 will not be able to serve the amount of demand that it will have for this community. So that is one building design I would like for the council to consider and possibly update with further designs on this project. Thank you.
Did you catch your name? Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll close public comment for tonight. It will not be the last time people can give input on this project, but do you have what you need, Keith, to proceed?
I think so.
Okay.
Keith, I have one follow-up question. I swam a lot at the prior municipal pool, and the last 10 years, it just felt like it looked really tired.
Yeah.
And so are there any lessons that we should be taking in terms of constructing this new pool from the last chapter of the prior pool?
Yeah, it's so obviously one, that pool was built in 1967, 65, whatever year it was. Technology has improved greatly. So we've had a lot of conversation about, getting rid of the chloramines, which when you go into a pool, you smell, you think it's chlorine. It's actually the chloramines is that you're smelling. So we want to make sure that we have good air, good ventilation, that those chloramines are being exited out of the building rather than recirculated. So that's already conversations that we've had. I think the use of colors, and when you walked into the municipal pool, you had the wood, you had some of the darkness. The lighting wasn't the greatest. So I think just making a brighter atmosphere, I think that will help. A variety of if we use epoxy paint, versus regular paint. So there's a number of things that we've had some conversation on, and we could have a really lengthy conversation on this, but it's not only what wasn't good at municipal pool. It's when any of our staff or consultants have been to other pools, have been to other facilities, comments that I hear from council, from the mayor regarding what they've seen. We're trying to incorporate a lot of that so we can avoid, some of, like you said, that tiredness when we get down towards the end.
So the lady mentioned the idea of 8 lanes. Our consultant, Water's Edge, they're a national expert on pool design. It has the issue of the number of lanes been discussed with them, and did they have any insights based on our demographics and our population?
Yeah. They actually have in some of our conversations has suggested going down to 4 lanes.
Oh,
and
don't.
We said no.
No.
we said no. So in response to Ms. Myers, comments about the 6 lanes, we have had a lot of conversation about this. So one of the things, at municipal pool, when you went for lap swimming from 11 to 1, those lanes were full. All right. But we can change some of the dynamics. We have a lot of lap swimmers don't want to swim with 2 people in the lane. These lanes are a little bit wider. So we want to encourage, 2 lanes, or maybe some policy things that we have to do differently. But we had very limited lap swimming time at municipal pool. So now, we anticipate, that we can have lap swimming in the morning. We can have it just about almost any time, throughout the day. We can leave some lap lanes open. Now, when we get to swim lessons, we may not be able to do that. But if we put 2 people per lane, and some people do swim that way, but if we put 2 people per lane and we have opportunities throughout the day, and we can spread people out, they'll start, finding, the niche that works well for them. Now, is that going to solve all the problems? And I'm going to say no, because like Ms. Meyer said, that there are certain times when everybody wants to swim, whether it's after work, whether it's, at night, whether it's noontime. But we're hoping that by stretching out and offering more opportunities, that we can alleviate some of those problems. So that's where we've kind of been at that 6 lanes. Now, the 8 lanes, I'd have to check, because obviously that would increase the cost. You'd have, let's say, 8 times 75. What is that? That's 150, 300. That'd be another 600 square feet at roughly $700 a square foot, maybe a little bit more. You could be talking another $500,000, maybe even more. And you might have to resize some of the equipment to filters and so on. But if you want that information, I can definitely get that if council wanted staff to send back a memo or something with that information. We could do that.
All right. Thank you, Keith. Good conversation.
All right. Thank you much.
All right. Oh, and just point of clarification. It was never, I think I jumped in and said something about the project budget. Is council okay or supportive of what staff is recommending? And that is staying pat right now at this point in time on the budget for the construction side, and see what they can come up with.
So at what point do we discuss the walking track then?
As far as still keeping it as an ad alternate, or trying to put it as a part of the base bid?
We're going to have
Yeah.
to design it either way, right? They're going to design it either way.
Yes, it will be.
Even though if we
designed.
appear to be over, we're going to still bid it out.
Okay,
So we're not going to, even if it shows that we can't afford it right now,
right,
we're still going to design it. So that's going to be
okay.
it'll be bid as an alter, right?
Yeah, it will be designed, and again, at the end of design development, I think we'll have a better feel for where we're at, cost wise.
But then we'll make a final decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let us come back with other
Okay.
cuts. And
That's, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't being scrapped.
No,
Oh, no,
no.
that's good clarification.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Keith.
Thanks, Keith.
All right, move on to item number 34, funding agreements associated with the Story County Saturated Buffer Bioreactor Project.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. These 2 agreements are essentially a continuation of agreements that we started a year ago. I just wanted to take a quick opportunity to thank the partners that we work with, particularly the Iowa Department of Ag and Land Stewardship. They're contributing on the order of $250,000 towards these projects. And in terms of the nutrient reduction benefit we're getting between $325,000, $350,000 worth of projects for us putting in up to about $50,000. So it's a really great way to leverage the work. The partnerships that we've got with Story County, with County Conservation, Soil and Water Conservation District, and IDALS. This has really been a fantastic program. So if you have any questions about the agreements, I'd be glad to answer them.
I appreciate the fact that you're just calling out and complimenting and thanking the partners, because it's not just us doing it, but it's a benefit for everybody.
Absolutely.
Could you walk us through, so once these are constructed, how long will they be in place and what's the plan for maintenance?
So the property owners have to sign a 10-year maintenance agreement on them. The life of the saturated buffers maybe is maybe 20, 25 years. The nitrifying bioreactors, maybe a little less than that. They could be refreshed. You just have to pull the cover off of it, replace the wood chips, and then put it right back into operation.
So I love this project. Will we be responsible for maintenance then going forward? So this is just on the construction. What about the maintenance?
Yeah, the property owners themselves.
So it's all the property owners at
Right.
that point.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they're in exchange for getting these improvements put on their land for free, they agree to maintain it for at least 10 years.
And how do we know that they're complying with maintenance?
That's part of the role of what the Soil and Water Conservation District is going to do, is they're going to manage oversight of the maintenance on those projects.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Open up public comment. Does anyone want to address council on this topic before we move on the resolutions? Seeing none, we'll close public input. I entertain a motion on resolution approving the 28E agreement with the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship, Division of Soil Conservation and Water Quality, City of Ames, and Story County Soil and Water Conservation District.
So moved.
Move to second and roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I entertain a motion on resolution approving funding agreement between Story County Conservation Board, and the City of Ames for funding assistance for water nutrient removal practices.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on, item number 35, integrated site plan subdivision for Daniel subdivision, second edition.
Good evening, council. So we reviewed this earlier. This is in front of the Bam Bookstore and the Best Buy earlier this summer. We're here for a final plat, which is normally administrative approval through consent calendar, but there was a change in the flow of the site. So I wanted to just highlight that for you before you look at this. So the drive-through was modified to be a double loaded driveway, which did change some of the parking lot circulation here. So staff does believe it still functions. It'll be a logical parking lot layout, should be still a safe environment where people should have a good understanding of where they're trying to get to, because we are crossing multiple lanes of a parking lot. That was one of the bigger issues when we first looked at this. Staff supports the change. We think it works with this arrangement. So we want to recommend approval of the final plat with this minor change to the site plan.
Questions for Kelly? All right, open to public input. Is anyone who wants to address council on this topic? Seeing none, we'll close public input and entertain a motion on resolution approving minor amendment to the site development plan for this project.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. I entertain a motion on resolution approving final plat.
So moved.
Second.
What do you want?
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Thank you. All right, move on to item number 36, minor final plat for Hidden Creek Farm, Plat 1, West 190th Street.
Good evening. This request is for a minor final plat that's located in Story County. 190th is the existing current city boundary. So it's in the Ames Fringe overlay. The hatching area over that property is called the Story County Study Area. And so what that says in the Ames Urban Fringe Plan is that area, it's kind of, resorts back to the approval authority, or the entity for approval authority that state code refers to, which in this case we have review authority and Story County approves it. So we have been working with Story County and the developer for several months over this proposed final plat. It's a final plat because there'll be no city public improvements to the site. The red dashed line that kind of curves through the site is the Ada Hada watershed boundary. Everything on the west side of that is within the watershed. Everything on the east side of that line is outside of the watershed. So most of the development would occur outside, and actually the intended use is for religious use. So it's even possible to develop the site completely without even being within that boundary at all. This is the Ada Heda watershed also typically requires a conservation subdivision. We read through those regulations. Those apply to residential subdivisions only, and this isn't a residential subdivision. This is for the intended use as a church. Since it is located so close to the city, though, and there is a residential subdivision across the street, we did look at how development of the site might impact and interact with the city traffic and such. So we've created a development agreement with the developer and the county as well. The county's not a part of the development agreement, but they're aware of what the development agreement is asking for, and they included those things as conditions of approval on the plat that they took to their Plan and Zoning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. Both have the Planning Commission recommended approval. The Board of Supervisors approved it this morning at their meeting. So with that, I can answer any questions that you might have. The development agreement addresses a sidewalk along 190th. It controls, it's asked for a traffic memo when they do develop it. It restricts the use to a religious use, one single family residence or ag uses. So you won't see a subdivision on this property. There is an outlot that may be developed in the future, but at this time, there's no plan for that to be included or to be developed at this time.
I have a question on this. So there are actually a lot of benefits of the conservation overlay. One of the ones that I have really appreciated is the limitation on adding fertilizers and things to the ground that might eventually impact Ada Hayden. Could you clarify, does the development agreement address any of those attributes?
No, it doesn't address those attributes at all. Since the conservation subdivision regulations if this were in the city of Ames, it would not apply since it's not a residential development. It's a religion. The use is not residential. It's in the county. The county does have some. I don't know what their requirements are, but they do have some stormwater requirements and things that they do look at.
So we offer a great deal of flexibility for religious uses, but I still want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and protecting the water supply. Is the staff making any recommendations to us about things that we could do to make sure that we're addressing our stewardship issues here?
Not in this situation.
I think the one thing that you hit on in the conservation ordinance that's unique is that right, we can't prohibit the use of fertilizer. We have a requirement that the HOA has a covenant to enforce the limitation of putting fertilizer on property. So that is not in this agreement, as Julie just said. What we have is our standard stormwater design requirements and our treatment requirements. The one thing we don't have is the phosphates control.
Could we ask them?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, is that something that we would entertain? I mean, what's the downside in asking? I almost would be willing to require it. I don't know how to do that, but we really need to take this serious. That's a lot of ground. So, I mean, you can walk me off the ledge on this, but what are your thoughts as far as how we would address that issue? That's sort of an important one for me.
I think if we're going to address the issue and that's how you want us to proceed, we would need to delay approval, go back to and discuss this with the county and the developer and get it in the development agreement.
And I'm sort of throwing this wrench into things here. I don't know what the people's schedules are, but
Or could we say contingent, we approve it contingent on that, and it would only delay it if they didn't agree to do it?
Trying to just think through what you have multiple actions on the agenda, right? So there's 3 steps to doing this. One is to accept the development agreement, which includes a reference to the conditional waivers, which is one of the steps. And then ultimately there's a final plat. So it seems like, I'm just trying to think through the best way to incorporate that requirement would be in the development agreement. So as Mark here, I'm trying to understand if council's direction was to approve the development agreement contingent on inserting a landscape plan requirement to reduce the use of phosphorus. If that was the motion and you've agreed to that, and as long as the developer signs that modified agreement, would that be satisfactory then to consider the plat approved and recorded? Did you hear all that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would work. But if they don't accept it, then it'd have to come back.
Okay, so then there wouldn't be a delay of waiting until April 11th to report back their decision. So if that's clear, I think I'm looking at the conservation ordinance. The standard we would normally apply says, in addition to the above, land management practices minimizing impact of nutrients shall be used and demonstrated in the watershed. Minimal fertilization of lawns, including phosphorus, is recommended.
Yep.
So that's the language that's in chapter 23 now. And how we normally have operationalized that is through review of the stormwater management plan at the time of final plat with the HOA's documents. So we could craft something that says that a landscape plan that follows these practices is a condition of the development agreement. I don't know how precise of language would I need tonight.
Well, how would that work? Because it's not even the city limits. I mean, this is
All
county.
Yeah, so you'd have to
I mean,
enforce
they'd
an
have to-
agreement.
It's voluntary. I mean, in a
No, I'm asking Kelly.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so one, we'd be able to review the landscape plan. They'd have to commit that they're doing that. We'd see whatever's in that plan. If they didn't do that and we were aware that they weren't following it, we would have to enforce the agreement against them. So it'd be a civil action, I guess, against them. And
Well, does
follow
the
the
Story
agreement.
County have jurisdiction over this?
Nobody has jurisdiction over the application of phosphorus. You cannot directly regulate that in Iowa. So you have to have an agreement, or you have to have some kind of landscaping plan. You can have a design standard, not a design standard. You can make people design things to minimize the use of it, but you can't outright prohibit that. Like you can't adopt a rule that says you can't do that in the city of Ames.
So the development agreement would actually have to stipulate that the city would have review and approval on something that we do not have jurisdiction over.
We already are doing that.
Mhm.
Same with the stormwater plan, arguably with the driveway, some other things, because they're asking us to waive all of our requirements. So we're reserving the right to review things that we would normally have reviewed for a development project. This wrinkle of the phosphorus application did not come up previously.
But it's tough to enforce this, right?
It's very hard to enforce.
What's the action that you'll minimize?
So the way the standard's written is you need to have land management practices that minimize the application or the impact of nutrients.
How do you measure minimization?
So the way we do that is they tell us how they're going to manage the land over time.
And this is the same issue that we have currently. It's not any different than what we currently do, right? Because currently the HOAs have this,
I think
it's more like an awareness issue than
a little bit. I think the difference here is we have a more prescribed method of going through the subdivision review process and reviewing those documents and approving how that language is done. And then we have we also have a 3-year requirement to hold a bond for the stormwater measures. So there's a little bit of our activity by our engineering staff, at least at the very beginning of a subdivision. It's not
But
for
then
20
after.
years.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I'm not 100% sure how I would write that standard right now. Definitely, I'm not sure how I would write it to make it enforceable. I'd have to talk with Mark about exactly what that means.
And I would like to think that there will be some good faith effort on the church to be a good neighbor and be a good steward with their land. But I think it's incumbent on us, if we have an opportunity to build this into the agreement, we should do that.
Okay. Other questions or comments for staff? All right, we'll open up public input before we enter into any kind of motions. Dr. Pease.
Hi, Jim Pease. I am president of the Friends of Ada Hayden Heritage Park. First of all, you've received my comments by email that I sent yesterday, but wondering a couple of things, I guess, and maybe you guys can answer. I'm not understanding exactly why the developer wants you to waive the conservation easement standards.
They didn't ask
Actually,
us to.
wait, let's, if you want to go ahead and pose the questions and give your comments, and then we'll make sure that staff
Okay,
answers your
okay,
questions.
that's one of the things I don't understand.
Would you restate the question?
But, yeah, the question is, what is it in the conservation standards that the developers of this particular plat, don't want to enforce or agree with? I don't understand why they're doing that. But be that as it may, I think it, as I said in my comments to you in writing, that I think it sets a very dangerous precedent, even for a small portion of the watershed, to go ahead and waive the standards. I think the precedent then becomes anybody who comes and asks gets a waiver, whether it's a church or a synagogue or a mosque or a house. I don't think that matters. It seems to me that other people within the watershed have agreed to apply these standards when they develop, and you can see lots of places, of course, there in Quarry Estates and that have enforced those standards and developed anyway. So I would encourage the council to not set a precedent. This is on the just in the very northern edge, on the just north of 190th but the watershed, as you can see, extends way far north of there, in land that may or may not be developed by Ames or by Gilbert or by the county in future years. So I think to set a precedent early on that says, oh, we're going to waive those standards, they really don't matter that much because it's just a small piece of the watershed, I think is a very dangerous precedent. And I would encourage you not to do so.
Thank you. Any other feedback? Okay, we'll close public input. So does staff have any idea or response to Dr. Peace's question on why the developer is asking to waive the conservation overlay? Or do you know?
So I think there's a couple of things. I think staff said that it literally doesn't apply because it's not a residential subdivision. So there's some provisions in there that maybe could apply to other things. But if you were to literally, if we were to say this was a residential subdivision, because theoretically one of the lots could have a house and the other can have nothing, it changes the subdivision. It's unapprovable. You would have to design outlots and different measures into this one lot that would meet those standards. So the developer knew they had no intention of building residential lots here. So they wanted a direction on whether the conservation ordinance applied or not. And staff said, well, we did not view it as a residential subdivision. Therefore, we're not making you conform to all of the conservation ordinance standards in terms of layout and the different elements that go into how we review those. So that was staff's direction to them. So are they officially asking for a waiver? I would say based on staff's advice to them that it is not a residential subdivision. They probably did not directly ask for that. What they did ask for is waivers of all of our improvement requirements, including typically that would include our stormwater requirements. That's what we held back and said, no, we're going to keep our traffic improvement requirements and we're going to keep back our chapter 5B stormwater requirements. We did require a conservation easement in the front so that it would kind of match aesthetically along 190th Street and along Hyde Avenue, but we did not expect other elements of a conservation ordinance here. So it might be a little gray area of whether it's truly they're asking for a waiver or staff determined it did not apply.
Right. So if this is in our growth area.
It's in our urban reserve.
Okay, thank you. If they're not required to do stormwater detention and management now, and if that was annexed in the future, they would then be grandfathered in and not have to do anything. Is that correct? Regarding stormwater detention and management on their site, if they build now before being annexed in?
Nope. So that's what we're retaining in the development agreement is they will have to meet 5B, whether it's built in the county or built in the city.
Okay.
So that was one thing we wanted to make sure we maintained it, because normally this is the first time we've ever retained any substantial authority over future use of a lot.
Mhm.
We just didn't feel, because of its proximity to the city, the likelihood of how it could be developed and relate to all of our infrastructure, we weren't really comfortable just completely waiving it, which is really your decision back in August. You didn't want to just unilaterally waive all the standards. You wanted to see a specific proposal, which is what you're looking at today.
Kelly, to Dr. Pease's concerns, so are there any other aspects of the conservation standards that we forego by waiving the standards?
Well, if you agree with my determination that the standards don't apply,
Correct.
then none of it, you're not missing anything.
No, I didn't frame the question right. My apologies.
So if you,
Let's just say in a hypothetical situation that the conservation standards do apply and we're going to waive it. What would we be giving up from a conservation, the values and benefits from that? We've talked about, because I'm going to make a motion in a moment about the phosphorus. Is there anything else that we give up? That's what I'm trying to tease out.
I'm just trying to think through. The site's a cornfield now, so I don't know that there's any identified, we haven't seen anything that identified any resources on the site that I recall. There's no wetlands, there's no depressions, or something that we would normally have buffered or protected. Off the top of my head, again, how this would translate to this site, I'm not sure. Mass grading is prohibited, which is the large scale disturbance of a site for cut and fill to equalize things. You're supposed to work a little bit more with the land. I don't know how that works in relation to a church site, because they're not trying to grade streets and lots. Theoretically, I guess that's there. Some of the other things relate to how much open space there is. We would expect 20% of a site to be open space in a conservation subdivision. The lot, again, if there's residential lots, you're supposed to have 80% of them front on open space. Well, there's not lots, so there's not open space to kind of judge that by. Native vegetation is expected in conservation areas, so there's no specification about whether it's native or not with how this is currently written. I'd say those are the highlights. When you do stormwater treatment, so even the 5B would apply to you, even if you were in the city, right? The way you meet 5B is different in a conservation ordinance than it is in other parts of the city. So you're giving up that mandatory qualitative nature of using a. It's not that you couldn't or wouldn't use a treatment train approach of using other measures to filter this through the site. It's just not that it's mandatory without the conservation ordinance. So there are, if it applied, there are a few things that would be left off if this was approved this way.
Okay, thank you. Very helpful.
All right. What is your, what?
I'll introduce a motion that we ask the staff to develop and Kelly, what was the phrase you used? A conditional agreement?
How do you want to word that? You're saying you're conditionally approving the agreement subject to whatever you're going to
let's
make a motion to add, right?
Yeah. Is your motion going to be to, as Brown suggested, a conditional approval to the resolution, or is it going to be something to go back to the applicant and ask them to do
I
something?
think Brian's
we're
suggestion is outstanding. It keeps the project moving.
Mhm.
Hopefully, we'll arrive at our goal.
Okay, thank you. Just like, thank you. Go ahead.
So, Mark, help me tweak this. If do you have a proposal?
I think you want to move to approve it, but with a condition that, or approve it conditionally upon the staff negotiating with the developer to include the language you want to include.
And for the motion specifically, a phosphorus reduction provision.
So would you take a motion to amend the agreement and then pass a resolution on
That's a good question.
the development agreement as amended? because there's actually on the agenda is a resolution approving development agreement. I'm trying to
Right.
make sure we follow through with how it's been structured and set up in the agenda and how it's been included in the packet essentially. So you're actually moving to amend the agreement. Is that right?
Yeah, we're making a motion to see if we want to add an amendment to the agreement. If that's approved, then you would vote to approve
That's
the agreement
so
Yes.
So an amendment to an agreement would be appropriate.
first.
Then we would take an action on
Yep.
the amended agreement.
I agree.
Can I restate that for the clerk?
So I'm going to withdraw my prior motion.
Okay.
And so Mark, guide me through this.
Okay.
Rocky terrain here.
Okay.
I'm going to move that we amend the agreement
The development agreement.
The development agreement.
to include a phosphorus reduction provision that will be, and that approval be contingent on the developer's acceptance of this.
Yes.
Close?
Second.
So you say it one more time just to
No.
make sure
That's
make sure
all
I know
got.
what I'm supposed to implement.
Yeah,
So-
because the verbiage is really important.
And that's why I'm looking for guidance. So
That's what I want to hear.
the heart of what I'm trying to do is the motion was to amend the development agreement to provide for a phosphorus reduction provision contingent upon contingent upon developer approval.
Can I just say, to me, what you would actually want to drop the last piece because you're not actually, you want this in here, right?
Yeah, the
Right.
developer approval part's not relevant.
Yeah.
Right.
So I would
Right.
say that it'd be.
So I'm open to suggestions.
Yeah. I'm just trying to help
Okay.
make sure that we're efficient and also give Kelly some direction. You're not willing to come back with, hey, no, we're not going to do it.
I'll take that friendly amendment. So you can delete that part about
I
it.
think I'm just kind of talking out loud a little bit. I think if I have to implement that, what I think we're saying or what you're expecting staff to do is to review a landscape plan that includes landscape management practices that reduce phosphorus usage on the site. That's how we would do it now. So I think that's what we're asking for is that when a site plan comes in, that staff's able to review the landscape plan and they have to provide for landscape management practices that minimize the use of phosphorus. That's essentially the language that's in our code right now.
Yes.
But that's on your development agreement right now, isn't it?
What's that?
That's not in the development agreement.
That's what I think the motion is to add is essentially that staff reviews a landscape plan that includes practices that minimize the use of phosphorus.
Yeah.
And that's something I think staff can administer because you're relating it to a plan
All right. So
and that they have to provide that to us to get approval.
if,
So you're
if
not
this-
amending the agreement?
No,
You are
our motion is
amending
to
it.
amend the agreement to add that.
So so the point is the intent of what he's saying can be crafted by Mark and you.
Yeah, I'm saying,
To basically identify exactly what you're talking about without having the exact verbiage. Is that correct?
yeah, I'm trying to take that intent and make it into something that staff can administer rather than say,
Right.
we need to go force an agreement
Right.
that said you would minimize phosphorus. And we've never reviewed anything to say what that phosphorus usage is.
And Mark, that would be appropriate and able to be done without.
Yes.
the exact
You have to
verbiage.
Yes.
restate that then, whenever we,
Yeah.
make sure the clerk gets it.
Well, no, the motion just needs to say, we want to have phosphorus reduction or whatever it is included in it. And then Kelly and Mark would then work on the actual verbiage that would go into the agreement.
Right.
If that's acceptable, and I'm saying the way I would work on that is to work through a landscape plan that has to have these management activities
Right.
identified.
So
Okay.
why don't you repeat the motion as you have it right now?
As I have it now, I have moved by Martin, seconded by me, Hanson, to amend the agreement to provide for a landscape management plan that minimizes the use of phosphorus. And then we'll move to the resolution.
Right. Does that work for you? That captures the intent of what they're trying to accomplish.
Yes.
All right. Everyone in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Any other amendments to the agreement? Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and move on the amended agreement. Entertain a motion on resolution approving the development agreement as amended.
So moved.
Roll call.
Hanson,
Aye.
Betcha,
Aye.
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 Okay,
So I'm just gonna, so the development agreement is just approved, right?
pardon me,
The development agreement is just approved on.
Yes.
as amended.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I want to be clear as we get to the next ones, make sure that all parties here know what's going to happen. So if you're going to vote then to approve the waivers and approve the final plat, staff can't release that final plat to be recorded until a newly signed development agreement is returned to the city clerk, right? We got to make sure we all understand that that plat
Right.
cannot get released without a new development agreement.
Right.
So we need to move to table the resolution on the waiver of subdivision standards and
Nope.
table the final.
No, I think you're approving the waivers because it's still subject
Okay.
to the development agreement. And then you need to, the motion for the final plat is approve the final plat subject to the return of the signed development agreement from that first resolution.
And that's all in order, Mark.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Entertain a motion on resolution approving the waiver of subdivision standards.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 All right. And then we need to have a resolution approving final plat.
Subject to the return of a signed development agreement.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Make sure Carly gets that. You good? All right. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Very good. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Kelly. Let's just take a quick 5 minutes stretch break, and then we'll come back and get into item 37.
I suppose Girl Scout cookies.
Tomorrow
night,
Let's do it.
All right, we're back in session and we'll move on to item number 37, resolution approving development agreement with townhomes at Creekside.
Good evening. I know I sound a little raspy still. I'm sorry.
Wasn't that 2 weeks ago?
It's just been going on. But before you is the next step in the process for seeking low-income housing tax credit on Lot 27 in the Baker subdivision. So staff has been working with the Hatch Development Group, who we awarded the RFP with, and they are now going to be doing this agreement under Townhomes at Creekside LLLP. And so before you, we have negotiated that we will proceed with applying for the LIHTC award, and the city will be set aside $1.8 million of our home funds to help construct 38 units, of which 16 will be 2 bedrooms, 18 will be 3 bedrooms, and 4 will be 4 bedrooms. And also, as a requirement, the home funds that we're committing to it also says we have to set aside, based on the amount of the money that we're putting into the project, how many will be administered through our program, which equates to about 7 units of the 38 units will be set aside for us to do guidance with our home regulations under this project. And we're looking to have those 7 units be 3-bedroom units. And then we also, for households at 50% or less of the Ames median income limit. And then we still have our agreement that was in our RFP that 10%, 4 units will be designated for Section 8 voucher holders. And we've set aside 1 per bedroom size and 1 floater as part of this agreement. And so I think we did a pretty good job in getting this agreement done in a very short time to meet the, hopefully meet the deadline for when this application would be due to the Iowa Finance Authority in April, by April 19th. So unless you have some specific questions, we have the layout of the units up on the screen. And if there's any specific questions that you might have about the developers agreement, I try to kind of give you the biggest highlights.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
I think this said that the parking issue was addressed as part of this
Yeah,
layout.
so when we did some of the other changes on the site, this has been essentially flipped from the first proposal. Now on the west side of the property, that's where that extra parking was added, which was, I don't know, about 14 plus parking spaces. So this plan shows 78, which is the code requirement. Iowa Finance Authority, you'll see that note on there, only requires 1.5. That's what they showed originally. So if council doesn't change any zoning standards in the future, this plan is still approvable. And that's why we're including that as the concept plan.
Other questions? All right, we'll open up public comment. Does anyone want to address council on this topic tonight? Seeing none, we'll close public input. If there's no further questions or comments, I will entertain a motion and resolution approving the development agreement with Townhomes at Creekside LLP, affiliated with the Hatch Development Group in conjunction with the low income tax credit application for multifamily housing development for Lot 27 in the Baker subdivision.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Okay, moving on to item 38. Any questions for staff on this one? You want to highlight anything, Vanessa, on this?
No, I think we covered most of it in the developers agreement, but according to our state law, anytime we sell property, we have to do it at a public hearing. And so this is why we have the option agreement on the agenda as a public hearing.
Okay. I declare the public hearing on the sale of the property, or actually be on the option agreement for the sale of Lot 27 to Townhomes at Creekside to be open Is there anyone that wants to address council? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing to be closed. Entertain a motion on resolution approving the option agreement for the sale of lot 27 to Townhomes at Creekside LLP, an Iowa limited liability partnership affiliated with Hatch Development Group in conjunction with low-income housing tax credit application for multifamily housing development.
Move approval?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Anything else, Vanessa, that I guess you got a green light to get going on this one then, or?
Yes, sir. We are excited to move forward. And I think this is the last step we need prior to getting that application submitted on time on or before April 19th. So,
Did you want to introduce Michael?
yes, excuse me, Michael
Or
Curran
maybe,
with
actually,
Hatch
maybe
Development.
Michael can introduce Michael.
You guys have had a long night, so I used to be on the city council, so I know when to shut up, and I'm sure you guys want to get home and get something to eat. Mike Kiernan, 740 16th Street, Des Moines, Iowa. Kiernan Development and Construction in partnership with Hatch Development Group. We're honored for the privilege to take this forward to try to secure a LIHTC award for the city of Ames. We're excited about it, and the way that we've taken a look at the score, we think the city of Ames has a very good chance this year to pull one of these awards. So we're going to get to it. We'll meet the deadline of the 19th for submission. I want to thank, you've got a wonderful city staff that we've worked with, and really should know that to turn these things around in such a short order has really been a lot of work. I want to thank Vanessa and everybody else for all their hard work. I'd also like to tell Councilman Garten, before I forget, there was concern that there was no playground on this site, and actually it's just that the site concept is labeled wrong. Where it says amenity area, we will be adding a playground. So I just want council to know that as well. So there'll be a playground added to that. We've met the parking requirements, so I think we're good to go. We're ready for takeoff.
Well, I appreciate your interest and support in this project.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right. All right. Item number 39, hearing on submittal of a second substantial amendment to city's 2021 CDBG Home Annual Action Plan. Vanessa.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Long awaited. The deadline is fast approaching on March 31st, and I'm being reminded daily by HUD that the application is due. And so we finally got it through the public comment period. And I do have a few changes. What we decided to do on this back in February is to use the funds to do non-congregate sheltering. And we are anticipating or proposing that we may end up with doing 3 non-congregate shelters. We may end up doing a lot more than that. We want to pursue trying to do some existing, maybe rehab acquisition, and then maybe having to move to new construction. And then from there, if we don't have any takers, because we will be taking applications from interested agencies that want to try to fill this role and doing non-congregate sheltering, and also focusing on the homeless individuals and those at risk of homelessness and those at domestic violence or stalking or trafficking is what we're proposing to utilize and serve under this program. And 15% of those funds will be set aside for program administration. CUD is very concerned about entitlements, getting the applications approved through the first process. So I've been assigned a coach through this process. And they did go through the application and gave me a few pointers that I just need to make some adjustments for the record. Okay. On page 26 of the actual application, there were 2 items. One was called preferences, where we've given preferences to the individuals experiencing homelessness, at risk of homelessness, and individuals fleeing domestic violence. That was our preference that we have been with all along. And then there was another section that had to do with limit liabilities. So I answered both questions, and actually you can only answer one. So you could either go with preferences or limit liabilities. So I had to adjust the application that the city will not be establishing limitation liability on this project. So just to make sure, because if I had answered it wrong, then it would have come back. And so we're trying to eliminate that. And so I do appreciate my coach going through the application and filling those things out. The last change we had was not because of the coach, it's because when we did our public forums, we had 2 agencies that participated on the January 9th forum, and that was Home Allies and the Story County Housing Trust Fund. So we added them under the agencies that were consulted at the January 9th meeting on page 5 of the application. And other than that, Mayor, I think we are good to go, and we will work diligently to get this in the system before the deadline, which is 10 p.m. on March 31st, Eastern Standard Time.
Questions or comments for Vanessa?
I'm glad you noticed the eastern part. That can really cause problems.
It could.
All right, I declare a public hearing on a submittal of a second substantial amendment to the city's 2021-2022 home annual action plan, including Home American Rescue Plan, Home ARP program funds to be open. Is there anyone who wants to address council on this item? Seeing none, I'll declare a public hearing to be closed. And no action from council necessary, correct?
Just for me to go.
All right, very good.
Thank you for all your support during this short process. And hopefully we'll have a $1.2 million coming here in a couple of months after this gets approved.
Thanks for all your
Nothing
efforts.
coming back for changes.
Thanks for all your efforts and putting up with all the paperwork.
Yes.
Thank you for working with a coach so it doesn't get kicked back.
That's right.
Yes.
It better not kick it. We got coach.
All right, can move on to item number 40,
Thank you.
rezoning a portion of the property adjacent to southwest corner of Cameron School Road, the Bluffs at Dank Bar Farms. Kelly. And
Good evening. Bluffs at Dank Bar Farm is before you is a request for a PRD. You saw the master plan for the site a few months ago. And it was for, the master plan showed, well, you could leave it there. The master plan all showed that tan area as FSRL with no lotting or street patterns. So it's coming back as a PRD, which that does comply with the master plan density and number of units that was approved. So the master plan does allow this PRD to exist. The north half will be approximately 50 homes with one lot for a pool house and clubhouse for the amenity. It's going to be another Domani development like we already see it. It's been start underdeveloped in South Ames that you've seen already. It's very similar types of homes. Actually, it's the same floor plans. A lot of the same layout with the houses pushed over to one side of the lot line with that zero. It's actually a 1.5 foot lot line on one side and the larger setback on the other side. There will be, if you want to, and then the south half will be 55 lots of traditional single family detached RL lots like you're used to seeing in the subdivisions up north that we've been approving lately. Outlot F is all in the floodplain. It will be primarily left as is. There'll be a little bit of work in that area just to allow for drainage to get down there, but nothing significant. And those trees are going to be protected, and easements and protected as much as possible along that west property line and along the backs of lots 1 through 16 in that area. Outlots A and B, those detention areas will have standing water, and then to some extent there will be a pocket park on Outlot B. Let's see, the timing of that will be with when Outlot B, one of the conditions that we've recommended is that when Outlot B is final platted, that's when the park improvements will have to be finalized. So we'll have to know exactly what's going to go in there. Will it be playground equipment and things like that? The timing of that would be approximately no later than the development of the third phase of the south area. They included a phasing plan and a statement and an exhibit that shows those. So the third plan is that blue area. So when Erickson Avenue, that new street connects up to the north part, that's when the park will be developed. And the clubhouse timing is another condition of that we've recommended, and that would go with phase 4 of the Domani development. Everest Avenue will not be extended from Scenic Valley immediately. Sewer will go in that area, but the street timing is based on a future final plat. Those two outlots, the church, the large outlot along GW Carver, will be platted at a later date. That's where Hope Lutheran Church is set to go, and that FSRM is staying as approved in the master plan for now, with nothing submitted for that project yet. I can answer any other questions. There'll be a new access so there'll be 2 access locations off of Cameron School Road, Erickson Avenue, the new street, and the extension of Everest. You'll see a preliminary plat for this area the same time that you do the third reading for this, for the PRD. They're waiting back to get approval of their Corps of Engineers permit. That's the only thing outstanding. They thought that it would be back in time for the third reading. And also at the third reading, you'll see an updated zoning agreement that just acknowledges the PRD as part of the development agreement and rezoning agreement, and nothing else will change in that. So all of the existing standards that were approved as far as street improvements and stormwater and sidewalks and all of that will remain the same.
Questions for Julie?
Is this area impacted at all by bike paths too, or is that not part of this area? Just curious.
No, it's just a standard 5-foot sidewalk throughout this development. There will be, is it on GW Carver on this side of the street?
The shared use path would be on the east side of GW Carver when it connects from Northridge Heights up to the Irons. So this side does not have a shared use path requirement.
Okay.
And there's no shared use path on Cameron School Road, I think, on either side, if I remember correctly.
There will be trails. There will be trail connections within the site where that park. Do you want to go with where the park exhibit?
Sure, if you tell me where that is.
It's like the second or third sheet in that. So part of the PRD allows reduced setbacks when you're not on the perimeter of the PRD. So if you scroll down just a little bit more, this one will work. Between lots 117 and 116, they'll have a sidewalk connection to the park. And then we've also, I think we also included a requirement that there will be that FSRM piece when that gets submitted and we review that will look for future sidewalk connections and trail connections. There really isn't anywhere else to provide a connection that saves anybody time or safety. I guess, yeah. So.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? On the pocket park, is that become city owned or is that maintained privately?
That will be maintained privately since it's part of it's a PRD amenity that those PRD has requirements for amenities, and that's one of the amenities that they're going to include.
And we also, not just the PRD, so we had this conversation during the rezoning that under Plan 2040, the site doesn't meet the park proximity service expectations. It's too far from neighborhood park in Northridge Heights. So as you get to these fringe subdivisions, the Plan 2040 says we need to have some kind of a recreation or an open space beyond just the walking paths if we're outside of that. So it fits well with the PRD and that there's an expectation of open space and amenities, but also for Plan 2040 conformance, we would expect some version of a park of a park to be here. We're not expecting these private developments to carry the full size of a neighborhood park. If there was more development planned to the west or to the north, I think we'd have a different recommendation for you. But since nothing is really able to go from any further west or north from here, we thought this was acceptable as a proposal.
I noticed too that the extension of the road that connects with Cameron School Road does not align with the driveway from the E Free Church up there. I know that seems like a lot of times you're trying to get, four-way intersections. Is that something which, from a traffic standpoint and turning type things, or is that?
Where is that, John?
So it's just
Go-
off
go-
the screen here. So in the preliminary plat,
If you
we show
go
that.
to the bigger one, if you go to the one you had a little while ago.
This one, yeah. So the issue is this natural gas pipeline and the appurtenant equipment they have here. You can't put a road there. So then, as a result of that, this is what traffic engineers agreed to in terms of a separation distance and a spacing, because we can't go right through there because of the natural gas equipment.
Well, they can move it.
Just saying.
Did you put that in the minutes?
Do not put that in the minutes. All right. Declare the public hearing on this item to be open. Is there anyone that wants to address council on this topic tonight? Seeing and hearing none, I'll declare the public hearing to be closed. Any further comments or questions for staff? Entertain motion on first reading of ordinance.
Move on first.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 And entertain motion on resolution approving the planned residence district FS PRD major site development plan.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Very good. Thank you very much, Kelly. Moving on to item 41, hearing on the 2023 Cyrite HVAC improvement project, to declare that public hearing to be open. Is there anyone that wants to address council on that topic? Seeing none, declare the public hearing to be closed. Entertain a motion accepting reported bids and directing staff to delay award of contract.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, moving on to item number 42. First reading of ordinance to amend the Ames Municipal Code sections 18.31, 32, and 343 regulating parking at Bristol Drive and Hampton Street. I entertain open a public comment on this item before we enter a motion. Anyone want to give feedback to council on this? Seeing none, we'll close public input. Entertain motion on first reading of the ordinance.
Move on first.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Entertain motion on second passage of ordinance on zoning text amendment to eliminate rooftop solar panel zoning requirements.
Move on second.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. And entertain motion on second passage of ordinance to amend Ames Municipal Code chapters 23 and 28 for utility connections and fees and rural water buyout fees.
Move approval on second.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 And entertain a motion on third passage and adoption of ordinance number 4493 relating to zoning text amendment for front yard parking and driveway standards.
Move on third.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Move on to item number 46. Entertain a motion on third passage and adoption of ordinance number 4494 to rezone a portion of the parcel located at 325 Bully Sunday Road from S-GA to HOC.
Move on third.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. And item 47, entertain motion on third passage and adoption of ordinance number 4495, revising 28.0309 of the Ames Municipal Code to amend the industrial pretreatment local limits.
Move on third.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. And we have one item under disposition of communications to council. It's a memo from our Public Works Director, John Joyner, on Cherry Avenue Extension.
It's just for informational purpose only, showing that we had a capital improvement project, a very substantial one, deal with Cherry Avenue, if you remember that. But it was in our capital improvement plan right before we were getting ready to implement that project. We do an updated study and now proves that that project won't be needed for many years, perhaps 10 or so years. So we're just putting on notice. You may see in the future us swap this project out for another project in the future. Funding will now become available for other higher priorities. So no action required. Just wanted to keep a heads up and ahead of the game on this for you.
Thank you. All right, council comments. Gloria?
Assistant City Manager Shildroth and I learned today that the session we proposed for ITGA on community conversations on mental health has been accepted for the conference. So we'll get to showcase what the community has done. And if anyone is interested in attending a lecture tomorrow night at the public library, I am going to be speaking on the Trice Connection, Jack's Black Friends, Family, and Classmates at 7 p.m. And it's also available on Zoom.
Very good. Thank you. Tim?
Nothing tonight.
Yeah.
I had a chance to get out to the Genevieve Salomon concert, and that was very nice on Friday night. And both in terms of awareness of issues around the plight of Indigenous women, as well as the music and entertainment. And Ames branch of the NAACP was a co-sponsor of that. So glad to see a good turnout for that great event. Thank you.
Nothing for me.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing for me. Thanks.
All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.